Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the All Systems Go podcast. I'm your host, Chris L. Davis, the founder of Automation Bridge, and today's guest could go without an introduction, but we won't do that. So glad to have her back again. And what we're going to be talking about today is something that you may have not known that you need, but after this podcast, I'm pretty sure you'll be in full understanding and agreement that this may have been the missing piece for you and your CRM software. But before I get ahead of myself and start jumping right into the podcast, let me give her proper introduction for those of you who do not know. Kronda Adair is the founder at Carvel Digital, where her mission is to help mission-driven service-based businesses use content to sell their services so they can scale without burning out in the process. And let me make Kronda tangible to you all. She went from making $500 websites 10 years ago. Okay. 10 years, just follow me, $500 websites 10 years ago. I'm going to let her, when she comes on, tell you where she's at now. But she provides tools to help you organize your content, and through their marketing intensive VIP days, she will help you craft a strategy to deploy your content to the right people at the right time so your prospects show up ready to buy from you. Kronda, thank you for jumping back on the podcast with us. How are you doing?
Third time's a charm. I'm doing so well.
You know what? Third time's a charm, and it still won't be the last time.
No, I'll just keep coming back for as long as you have me. I'm doing so good today. I just finished one of my CEO retreat weeks, prepping
Beautiful.
for a launch that we're going into, and I'm just excited about this offer because I do think it is the missing link, and I feel sort of silly sometimes that it took me so long to get here, but we're here now, so let's talk about it.
We're here now. So listen, everybody, I'm going to help you fast track and catch up. We're posting the links to Kronda's previous episodes on the podcast, so you can listen to that and get caught up to speed with her background and everything. Kronda, for the new listeners, just give them the 30-second, 10,000-foot view of who you are.
So like you said, started with $500 WordPress websites, and thankfully figured out how to raise my prices, how to branch out, how to create more effective websites, and eventually realized the website, it's important, but it's really the front door. And so in 2018, at the end of 2018, I transitioned out of web development and into coaching full time. And I started Content Bootcamp. And for the past 4 years, our flagship program has been Content Bootcamp, 12 weeks where I teach business owners how to create content that sells their services in preparation for them to be able to automate it. Because you have to have content that works in order to be able to automate it and get the results that you're looking for. So that's kind of where we were. And then I'm sure we'll talk in more detail about this, but throughout the year last year, gradually transitioned into realizing that what people need isn't what they needed before. So we'll talk about that pivot and get into the details, but that's kind of where we find ourselves right now.
Great. And I want to give a shameless plug. Kronda has an amazing resource around content called the Pot of Gold, everyone. And let me tell you how hot this pot is. Okay. We have a community. If you don't know, there's Automation Bridge community. You can join it anytime. But it's a community full of the sharpest and aspiring sharpest automated marketers to be. And I don't know if there's somebody that has heard about it that didn't just snatch it up immediately. I mean, it can't keep it on the digital shelves. So shameless plug there. Get your hot pot of gold while you can. And
and for those that are new, it's an Airtable template. So you got to have Airtable. A lot of people say, do I have to pay for Airtable? No, you can use the free version, but it's a template that will help you store all your content like the valuable asset that it is. And yeah, people love it.
Yeah, you all, if you're new to the podcast, You will hear Airtable on pretty much every episode. They do not sponsor this. They have not sent me a T-shirt, but I use their tool so much, and it just does so much. So with that being said, Kronda, you've been in the space for a while. Decorated. I will say rightfully so decorated because you've been in the trenches with the right client and you've been in the trenches with the wrong client. You've made shifts and pivots in your business to stay afloat, and to really continue to thrive. So right now, there is a need. We have talked about this, and I get to talk to you individually, but we've assessed the need in the market. And I don't know if the market is aware of this need yet, and thus we have this podcast. So kind of give us the lay of the land, Kronda, at what has led you to this new approach to getting marketing automation implemented the right way.
So last year, well, let me back up. So I started boot camp. It only took about 9 months into boot camp, which was no done for you, right? I'm just telling people what to do. Only took about 9 months before people started coming back to me and saying, "This is amazing. It's working. Can you help us with our tech? Because our tech is sad." And so I was like, okay, now you care about your technology. So let me go back and figure out what's the offer. I didn't want to go back to selling websites. And so I created it insourced. And so if you go back to the
Mm,
second time I was on here, we talked a lot about insourced, and it was like an umbrella, right? Because there's a lot of done for you things that we could do. We could do, marketing automation. We could do a little bit of LMS work. We were still doing websites at that time. If you needed a redesign or an upgrade from Squarespace, like all these things under this umbrella, for just a very simple, like retainer based pricing, right?
mm,
And what we would do is we would do the assessment. We would go through their 6 systems, and we'd say, okay, based on where you are, here's what you need to improve. Based on where you want to go, here's the order of operations. And then we say, okay, give us, minimum 4 or 5 months to do this. So that's where we were last summer.
mm-hmm,
And then, I don't know if it was the recession, the price of eggs, I don't know. But our retainers all just kind of came to a close,
mm,
and we weren't getting new ones. Boot camp was going great. We were getting people into boot camp, but we weren't getting those retainers, which were the bulk of our revenue. And so, I started looking at it. I think as a community, we started to talk about like what is going on in the
yeah.
space of automation. And because we meet every week, we were talking and we were saying like, we had this theory that people were doing automation, were using automation in their business, but they could do it better. I think that was kind of our collective theory.
Mm-hmm,
And that theory needed to be questioned. And so what I did was I started going to my colleagues and I started doing audits, and I would say, "Hey, give me $500, give me $1,000, and give me your ActiveCampaign login, and let's see what's going on in there." And so I did probably 6 or 8 of these audits, and there were a few people who were doing pretty good, but there were many more people who were like just missing out on so much opportunity.
yeah.
You know, I think to a large part of the business owner population who aren't as technical, if they have a welcome sequence, they're like, cool, I'm doing automation. Right. And you and I know there's just so much more to it than that. There's so much more opportunity than that to increase your revenue, to save your time, to save your team's time, to give your subscribers and your clients a better experience. Like there's just so much more out there. And so once I saw that happening, I was like, okay, how I describe it is if there's a scale from 0 to 10,
Mm-hmm,
we thought people were maybe at a 4 or 5, and we could get them to like 8, 9, 10. And really, what I found is people were like 0 and 1 and 2, and just trying to get a handle on it. And so that's why we came up with CRM to sales, because it is a full-time job. Like someone has to be focused on your CRM and making sure that your CRM is, as we say, marketing ready, right?
yeah.
Meaning You don't just have a mess of like a million lists in there and a bunch of tags that you created on the fly and no segmenting, or, those segments in ActiveCampaign where it says segment of, and then the date, and then the name of the email. And then you don't know when you come back to it, you're like, I have no idea what that is.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And I created a term for that called sudden segment syndrome, which I talk about on my channel.
S3. Geez, sudden segment syndrome. Get healed,
Get 10
everyone.
times fast. And
Mm,
so, um, and so I just started, offering this to folks and being like, we're going to take this over and we're going to start out. We were doing the audits, and then we'd say, okay, this is the first project that's going to get you to what we call the first victory, right? It's going to give you the biggest lift, the quickest wins. And
hmm
most of the time, that is just setting up that basic marketing engine, that basic email engine. And we both love Robin Kennedy over Email Marketing Heroes. They came up with
Yes.
that concept of having your email engine so that every person who subscribes to your list, they get that welcome sequence, but it's strategic, right? It helps them get to know you, and then they get that sales sequence. And I think most people understand the concepts of like, oh, I'm going to have the welcome email or the welcome sequence. They're not always strategic about it. I think much fewer people have the concept of like, and then I'm going to have a sales sequence. And it's not just going to be like one email going buy my stuff. It's like 5 or 6 emails, talking about your offer from different angles to really get people to buy, because they joined your list, presumably because they have the
Yeah.
problem that you solve. So
Yeah.
let's tell them how you solve it and why they should do it now instead of later. And that is going to increase your sales, and it's going to shorten your sales cycle. Like just that one
Yeah.
system.
Yeah, I found, as you're talking about this, I found that people often approach their CRM software very similar to a new computer, or a new car, right? I don't know how many people, when they buy a car, before they drive it, open up the owner's manual and like really read through it, right? Myself being guilty. Or when they buy a computer, brand new MacBook Pro, or Windows, whatever you want to say. Hold on, before we turn this on, let's read. Let's read this manual, right?
Nobody's doing that.
Nobody's doing it. And so you add technology, and there is no person on planet Earth that I have met, even in the mirror, I have not met this person who, before they dive into the software, they go through the documentation. They read and they make sure that they understand the platform to configure it the right way. So what happens is you're learning on the fly. And depending on your ability to learn and your understanding of marketing and your familiarity of technology and comfort with it is going to determine just how big that learning curve is. Some of you who are listening have an infinite learning curve. This is not a good thing. Okay. This means you will be there all day, all years, trying to figure out something that somebody like Kronda, certified automation service provider, by the way, has figured out for you. So once we understood that, it's kind of like no shame, right? Like no file for poor previous performance, no file. But now that you know better, it's time to do better. But what would it look like if we just said, hey, you need to do better, you're doing that wrong? So the CRM to sales is, from what I'm hearing, you jump in and make sure that the active campaign account is set up in a way for them to achieve success, and then you help them maintain it.
That's correct. Yeah. And the maintenance is a really important part of that, because I have a client. She was the first person actually for me to dip my toe back into the done for you waters back in 2019. I was like,
Mm.
boot camp forever, I'm not touching anybody. Like,
Boot camp forever.
and she came to me, and it was so clear that was like, well, you need an email marketing system. Like, you're not reaching out. It was like, it's a wellness facility, and you need those repeat customers. And it was so clear to me, like, oh, you need an email system. So I was like, okay, let me let me set this up for you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I set it up for her. We went our separate ways. And when she came back a couple years later, it had not been maintained. And then some things on the
Mm.
front end had changed. She had gotten a website upgrade. In the process of that website upgrade, really lost a lot of the gains that we had made in the marketing because the connections, the opt-ins weren't working properly. Like there was nobody there to say, hey, okay, cool, great, you're getting a new website. Let's make sure that we're strategic about this new front door. We still want to welcome people in. We still want to segment them. We still want to make sure they get the right messaging. And so when she came back, it was like, okay, well now there's a setback, and now we got to like clean everything up
Mm,
before we can then put you on the right path. So it is so much easier, much like cars or anything else that you value. It's so much easier to maintain it than to say, set it and forget it. And I had a conversation with her recently
mm,
where, she came in she came into the conversation with a little bit of like, well, what am I getting for this money every month? That was kind of the energy
yeah.
that we started.
Yeah.
And the energy at the end was, how can I give you a testimonial?
Mm, mm,
So, um, there has to be somebody who has their eye on that ball. And our goal is for the business owner to never have to log into ActiveCampaign if they don't want to. In fact,
yeah.
it's better. It's better if they don't. Like
Yeah.
we logged in and we found a couple of those segments. We're like, oh, what do you do? Let's make sure, you could just send us those. We'll create those for you.
Yeah.
And it's not to disempower people, but it's just to make sure that things stay marketing ready so that you can stay in your zone of genius. People can
Yeah.
do what it is they're actually meant to be doing. So that is the goal, is to just like take it over, take it off your plate as a thing. And she did give us a testimonial, by the way. And one of the things she said was, yeah, I learned some ActiveCampaign, but it's not a skill I really want to keep up.
Mm, mm. Listen, everyone, this is an intelligent business owner, which I believe all of you listening are. The only difference is in the awareness. Are you aware that you are the business owner? That, let me give you some credit. You could learn ActiveCampaign. You could, but you really shouldn't. You should leave this to the professionals. And here's why. Here's why. So I'm familiar with this offer. I'm familiar with the process and everything. And I want to give them a little bit of insight. And we're gonna flex on them collectively here, Kronda. So the regular ActiveCampaign consultant will tell you how to do stuff, and they may import some automations, and they may know how to do some stuff in automations, if else's, maybe send a webhook, I don't know, achieve something. I'll tell you what they can't do. They can't tell you historically through your entire lifetime of owning that platform how your emails and all of your automations have performed. And they can't easily track that month by month. They also cannot look at the segments. Let's just give people credit, Kronda, and say that they had organized segments of sending. They can't tell you the performance of those segments relative to the email open rate and the click-through rate. Okay. These are just two. I'm flexing a little bit, but I haven't really flexed too much. What if we could do all of that with a click of a button? Envision a dashboard where any year, any month of the year, I could see open rate of campaigns, open rate of emails sent in automations. I could see list growth. What if what if I wanted to see contact growth based on a tag? How many times was this tag applied? Now, some of you will be like, hey, there's advanced analytics and ActiveCampaign. And if we go here, listen, I'm not trying to demean ActiveCampaign in any way. What I'm telling you is the level of effort for you to figure out everything that I just listed should not be on you, because it's greater than your tolerance to figure it out. So if the level of effort required is greater than your tolerance, that's just a nice way of me saying you will fail. Okay. So
Give
with
it to them
that,
straight. Give it to them straight.
right. And we have to speak pointed like this because it's too many of you all with great businesses and you're just focused on the wrong thing. Kronda, talk about, I know you just gave us one case where they were a little reluctant at first, but then they were so relieved afterwards. Just walk the listeners through what that process entails from, okay, I've signed up, to some of the milestones where you started to see, okay, now they're starting to get it. Oh, now they're seeing the benefit, you know?
Yeah. So first of all, we launched this as we're recording this. It's been about yeah, it's been about 4.5 months since we launched this. And I literally, Chris, I wrote I wrote a sales sequence of the type that I spoke about earlier, and I hit send, and I got on a plane to go to an event.
Mm.
And traditionally, it so happens I often make more money when I go on vacation because I always write a sales sequence for something. So as I'm in Cabo at this event, I'm checking in, I'm opening up my phone, I can see like applications coming in. This is, I believe, the best product market fit that we've ever had in the company because we were booked out for the rest of the quarter, for the rest of the year within
Yeah.
6 weeks. I was like, oh, we can't. My goal was to get like 10 people sort of at first beta clients, figure out what this thing needs to be. And we did that in a matter of weeks.
Yeah.
And so that was the best launch that we've ever had. And so we've been taking clients through this process of getting them. So it's three phases, right? It's
Okay.
the audit phase to see what is happening. So, and we used to sell the audit separately just because I was trying to figure out what is happening, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now
Mm-hmm.
we've just rolled in it. So we're going to audit and we're going to see what is happening. But a lot of times we know it's just the things aren't happening that need to be happening. So I stopped doing the audits separately because I'm like, what we really need to figure out is of these three areas that we can automate, marketing or sales or onboarding, which one is going to give you the biggest win. And so we pick one of those and we do that project. So maybe that's setting up your marketing engine. Maybe that's setting up some sales automations so you can follow up consistently with leads. Whatever that is, we're going to do that. That's about a 90-day project. And what's typically happened, we had one client she started on MailChimp and she was like, okay, she heard me speak at this event that I was talking about. She's like, all right, I'm ready. I'm going to upgrade to ActiveCampaign. She tweeted me this. I said, okay, well, we're here if you need us. She's like, no, I got it. About 2 days later, she was like, I don't got this. I said, great. Let's do this. And so we not only, people think of migration as like, oh, I can move my list over. I can download a CSV and I can upload it to a new platform. No, we set up her, you've often talked about like preparing the platform, right? So
Yeah.
we did a strategy session and we figured out what is your strategy going to be? What are the segments that you need to have? What are the lists that you need to have? Like, what are our goals? And then we go and we set up the entire platform. So we know how people are going to be tagged when they opt in. We got to know how they're going to
Mm-hmm.
be segmented. And we know how we're going to track sales. So there's a whole thing that we did with the deals pipeline to track sales because she's a WordPress theme developer. So she has a
Yeah.
theme shop. So there's all these things that we did just to set her up before we even migrated anybody over. And then we migrated her customers, but we also did an event. It happened to be her 5-year anniversary in business. So I was like, great, that's a perfect event to structure this around, do a sale and to get people to move themselves over to ActiveCampaign,
Yeah.
right? Because you don't just want to move people over who are like unengaged. So
Yeah.
we want people to take positive action and say, oh yeah, I'm going to sign up on the new system so I can get the coupon for the sale. That shows you like who your engaged people are. That's going to help your deliverability right out the gate. And it's going to protect you legally, right? Because they're opting in, they're taking that positive action. So we did all of those things. Of course, we gave her templates to help her write her welcome sequence and her sales sequence, and almost immediately she started getting replies. So
Mm.
this was someone who was kind of doing the least, had really kind of checked out of her list, and so we launched this thing, and now she's done all the work beforehand, but now she's getting these replies from engaged subscribers who are loving her emails, loving learning about her philosophy, how she thinks about blogging and WordPress and the importance of your theme and all these things, right? So she's building relationships with these people and she's making sales. So that's what our migration looks like. It's building you an entire system. So
Yeah.
I talk to a lot of people who, they're very trepidatious about, letting go of like MailChimp or ConvertKit or any of those platforms that don't have a CRM. I have been for probably 6 months out here trying to ask ConvertKit users, what are y'all using for a CRM? Because you need one. And like they don't know what a CRM is. They don't have
Yeah.
one. They're trying to just use tags for everything. And I'm like, you know, depending on what your business is, that's okay for a while, but at some point, like you got to level up. And so, yeah, that's that's an example of like one case study that was, and she's such a dream to work with. She's one of my clients that, you know, now that she has the structure and she knows, oh, I don't have to struggle with this technology, like
Yeah.
clockwork every month. She's like, here are my emails for the month. You know, here's the template I want to use. Like she tells us everything that we need to know, and then we schedule it, and then we're good to go.
Yeah, and you know, in line with the automobile, we've had a few references. It's also this, everyone. You can't beat best practices, and you can't learn best practices just by reading something, right? Every platform will tell you, hey, you should do this, you should do that. But until you get in it and really start to use it, because the truth be told, the creators of software are often not the marketers that are using the software. So it's us that
Mm-hmm.
are finding those little Easter eggs and the little, hey, do this, do that. You need to ensure that whoever is maintaining your CRM software for you, that they have that skill set. So it's like I recently, well, I mean, my son recently bought a type of car that is not an American car. So he did not realize he can't take that to the regular automotive shops that he's been taking it to. He can, but you're going to risk that something is going to get broke if they treat that car like all the other cars. So he has to take
Mm-hmm.
it to that specialist, that dealership. It's the same with your CRM software. When it comes to ActiveCampaign, you need somebody that specializes in the best practices of that platform. Sure, you can go on Upwork. Sure, you can go on Fiverr. Sure, you can go into a Facebook group, post help, get 50 comments of people saying, DM me, I can help you out, and try to filter through all of that and be left with more than a mess than you started with. Or you can just take your CRM to the proper dealership with people who specialize in the best practices. And we, everybody, we're saying this in a means to help you. If you think about your website, it is much easier to hand that off. Just let somebody handle your website for you. Kronda and I are techie people. Give me somebody who's going to maintain my website, and I'm taking them 10 times out of 10. And I know what to do on my website. Why, everybody? Why put that extra weight on you is the biggest question. And for the most part, Kronda, what we've seen is that people just don't know that such a service is available. They're familiar with, hey, can you maintain my website? Hey, can you
Mm-hmm.
maintain my social media? Right? Hey, can
Mm-hmm.
you maintain my copy? But for whatever reason, maintain my CRM software just doesn't tend to
It's
roll off the
really
tongue the same way.
no, it has not been a thing. And I remember, you know, we went looking in the marketplace, right, to see
Yeah.
who's doing this, and it's
Yeah.
not very many people. And here's the thing, too, is the ones we did find, right? You could find a service and you could sign up right away. Literally go to the website, sign up. Half an hour later, you can be sending them tasks, right? They have a million VAs, they'll automate anything, but it's still on you as the business owner to have a strategy, to know what can be
Mm-hmm.
done. You know,
Yeah.
I did a webinar back in December and people were like, "Oh, you can do that?" You know, I have a mutual Airtable friend of ours
Yeah.
um who sent me a real excited DM and was like, "Ooh, somebody mentioned, you know, you could do this with conditional content and active campaign." And now she's excited because she doesn't care about it for the marketing, but she cares about it for her students. I
Yes.
want to be able to send really, really relevant information to my students. She's like, "Do you know about this? Have you been talking about this?" I literally have an entire YouTube video just about segmenting and conditional content. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
here you go.
Yeah.
So you have to understand what's even possible. And if you just go and you sign up with one of these agencies that's just like has, you know, a bunch of hands, somebody still has to be the brain. Somebody has to know what you can do. And it's the same whether you go to an agency or whether like you have your tech VA and you're trying to make them into a strategist, and they're just not. They're not going to look at your email and say like, I'm giving our clients, you know, some of them are like, hey, can you look at my email before it goes out? Sure, of course I can do
Yeah.
that, you
Yeah.
know, and say like, hey, where's this section that was in the first draft? That's the part that really impacted me. Like, let's make sure this gets back in there. Or hey, have you thought about this? You know, and they're not going to do that for you, those
Yeah.
generic services.
Yeah. They'll
And
they'll provide the building, right?
mhm,
It's like you hiring somebody, hey, I need a picture put up. Hey, I need a new sink. I need this. But they won't do the inspection. Right.
right.
Hey,
Yeah.
wait a minute. This beam looks a little weak. They don't care about that. So we're not knocking these services. We're just giving you all context on what you're getting and what you're not. Keep going, Kronda. Keep
Yeah.
going.
Okay, so here's the revelation that I had probably in the last few weeks.
Mhm.
So we onboarded our first, 8 or 9 clients, and we've been working with them for a few months. And I try to take all of the obstacles and remove as many of them as possible, right? So we're doing all the tech. I'm also giving them the email templates, right? Don't start with a
Mm.
blank page.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
talking to them about the strategy, and a month goes by, 6 weeks, 2 months goes by, and I'm like, we're still waiting on these emails from some of y'all. 4 welcome emails, Chris, that I gave them templates for. I'm like, what is going on? So I just emailed everybody and I said, if you don't have these emails done, book a call right now. Like, get on my calendar. So I start having these one on ones. And lo and behold, there's still all these mental blocks that are keeping people from finishing. I have a professional copywriter. She does copywriting and copy strategy for SaaS companies. But when it comes to writing her own emails, all of a sudden, roadblocks, you know?
Mm.
And so I realized, oh, I've been doing this thing where I've been bouncing back and forth, right? I'm like, oh, people don't understand marketing. Let me stop doing websites and do content bootcamp. Oh, people in content bootcamp need help with their tech. Let me set that aside and make it done for you. There's no such thing. You can't separate. If you want done for you, if you want somebody to come and build you a fence, great. You don't need mindset work for that. But if you, as the business owner, you still have to produce this content for us to be able to deploy it. And that means they need that support, they need that coaching, they need that community, they need that accountability. And so I realized I had to retire Content Bootcamp and I had to make it all one thing. So we've brought everything, all that support from Content Bootcamp, and we've rolled it in. So, and I sent out a survey. I said, what do you like? What do y'all need? And they were like, we need one-on-one. Some people want community. So we're finding a way to put all of that support into this so that you get the benefits. Because if you're paying, you know, whatever it is, whatever monthly fee, but you're not actually giving us the content and getting the benefits, then that's a waste of money. And that's not why we're here. I'm not here to just be like, oh, recurring revenue, and I don't care if we actually do anything. No, I want you sending the emails.
Yes. I want you to actually market because this will work. Right. And I hope what you all are hearing is a passion to meet you where you're at and provide a solution that will move you forward. I'm very careful with who I bring on and what we talk about, because the last thing that I want anybody to feel as a listener to this podcast is, oh, they're just pushing products or they're this, they're that. We have for years, truly assessed where the market is. And what we want you to do is not beat yourself up for not getting the most out of the platform. I was the director of education at ActiveCampaign for nearly 3 years, and I can't count how many customers I used to see talking to support and really admitting and saying, I know I should be doing more, but they did it in a guilt way. Like, I know I'm not using as much as I should, and this, and that. And, one side of it is use as much as you need to get the results that you need to get. No harm, no foul if you're not using features X, Y, and Z, but A, B, C, D, and E get you to where you need to be to. So that's one thing. But two is actually being effective with what you need, because you don't know. You don't. These platforms are so robust. Listen, Kronda and I, we get easily overwhelmed sometimes. This is not a specific to you because you don't know what you're doing. We know this journey. So this may be the first time that you've heard of such an offering. I would imagine after this, because I know marketers are listening and their wheels are turning, this will most definitely not be the last time you will start seeing this type of service offered. And remember, we softened that. We softened your heart to such a thing. And because of that, I believe that some of you are ready right now at the point of listening to this podcast. So, Kronda, I want to give you the floor real quick and just let people know, where can they go to find out more about you and this service offering?
Really, really easy. You can go to carveldigital.com. That's our homepage. I took my own advice. I knew we needed to up my website's been out of date because we did this massive pivot. So I hired a copywriter. It's like, I can write some decent copy, but what is it what
Yeah.
I should be doing? Probably not. So we just got our copy back. It is absolute fire. I can't wait to get up there. So just go to carveldigital.com and you can start your journey, learning whatever it is you need to learn before, we get on a call. We've been talking about content this whole time, right? So I encourage people, when people are new, maybe this is the first time people are hearing of me, right? And they hop in and they're like, okay, I want to get on a sales call. And before we actually get on the phone, I will send them, based on what they share with me, I'll be like, hey, go listen to this podcast, go watch this YouTube
Yeah.
video. I don't want
Yeah.
you showing up to a sales call like blind. I want you to go digitally stalk me, because you can learn just about everything you need to know about our philosophy, how we work, how we think about things, so that when we get on the call, we talk about you, right? We talk about
Yeah.
what you're going through and what you need to move forward. And I want to just let people know, because I have kind of a reputation, that I have been working on my poker face so that when people tell me what it is that they're doing, I feel like I gave a really great Oscar worthy performance, recently with one of our clients. I said, tell me the process. I didn't fool her, but the point is, I'm trying, y'all. So truly no shade. There's things that Chris and I are not good at. And if someone were to come in and audit, they'd be like, you're doing what?
Oh my
And we
goodness.
all have those things. So, so come on in. The water's fine. I'm actually much nicer than I sometimes am in my content. Um, as a lot of my clients say, especially who came through boot camp, they're like, "Oh, Karanda's so supportive. She's not mean at all."
Yes.
I truly just want people to win. I just want people to win, and so yeah.
All right. Well,
Come on, come
listen,
on in.
we're going to have that link that you mentioned below. You'll be able to connect with Kronda. I have to say this. I can't remember if I said it on the last podcast, but it's worth repeating. Kronda is one of the most resourceful people that I've ever met. I truly admire that she will go to unlimited lengths to figure something out that she doesn't know about, or to find a resource to give you to get you ready for something. I've when she went through the ASP program and got certified and everything, her resourcefulness is just, it's just unmatched, and I think that speaks to your heart to really help and serve. So that's who Kronda is, everybody. And I hope that in listening to this, you get a better understanding of not just where the market is, because you're there, you are the market. No longer do we have time to waste as the visionaries of our businesses. You don't have time to waste figuring out the tech. The hard part is finding trusted tech folks. You have some now. Okay. I've had a roster of people in the previous podcast in a variety of different areas, but this one is the closest to me. Kronda is certified. She's gone through my framework. She's part of our community. And if you ever thought, what kind of people are in that community? Oh, I'm good. I got clients. I know how to do this automation stuff. This landscape changes daily, especially with artificial intelligence now. Oh my
Oh man.
goodness. we can't even touch on it, Kronda.
We can't even get into it. No.
So you need a place where there are like minds. One brain is never better than the many, even if it's just one other mind. It's always better. You need a place where you can bounce those ideas off of. The community is that. automationbridge.com/community if you want to join us. Kronda, I can't thank you enough for joining me on the podcast. I don't even have to say see you online because I know I'll see you soon this week
That's
in
right.
the community. But thank you so much for coming on. It's greatly appreciated.
Always one of my favorite places to be.
Yes, yes, yes. All right.